Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us for our third session in our community leadership series that is generously sponsored by the First Energy Foundation. We are really excited to welcome Max Lambdin here with us today to talk about the Unwrapped Leader. So really get into, what it means to be an authentic leader. We continue to have some crazy times out there. So I think it's really awesome that you're all taking the time to do something for yourself right now and really kind of dive into what your leadership might mean to you during these times. So just a couple of reminders. If you can use the chat feature for questions, we will make sure that we get those sent over to Max. I will make sure that he sees those. And then also at the end of the session, we're going to send you an eval. We want to hear what you have to say and what you thought about today's session. And if you have any technical difficulties or anything like that, feel free to jump out and come back on. I know we were having some issue streaming to Facebook, so we are kind of troubleshooting that right now, but I don't want to waste any time. Let's get to the good stuff here. So Max Lambdin is a leading member of the Community and Donor Relations team at the National Exchange Club headquarters in Toledo, Ohio. He is also a business and nonprofit consultant and advisor. Before delivering actionable results in his current roles, Max has served on executive and leadership teams at Cherry Street Mission Ministries, Thrivent Financial, John Hancock, and Owens Corning. He has demonstrated success in the execution of nonprofit leadership and development, strategic implementation, team organization, organizational development training, sales management, marketing, and operations across many sectors. He holds a bachelor's degree in communication from the University of Toledo and a Master of Science in Management from Indiana Wesleyan University. Max is married to his wife, Deborah, for many wonderful years, and they have 3 teenage children together, and when not at home, enjoy lake time in northern Michigan and on Kelly's Island, Lake Erie. Don't we all? So, Max, thank you so much for joining us. You have quite the background, and I'm going to hop off and let you take it from here.
Great. Hey, thanks, Anna. I appreciate it. It's really something to be invited to share some thoughts and speak with so many great people that I know that are online, and Anna and team from Leadership Toledo, very humbled to have you have me share. Anna's a great leader, and I've really gotten a great time to enjoy getting to know her over the last few years, and dialogue, some coffees, and just sharing ideas and expectations of what it means to be a leader in our community. So I'm going to speak today and just kind of do a talk with all of you today, not really a training, fireside chat, if you will, and I'll enjoy any pauses, interruptions for questions or comments, and any challenges that you might have. I really will appreciate that. I am part of the leadership team at the National Exchange Club. We are headquartered on Central Avenue. That is the headquarters for the entire nation, where we're able to serve our 20,000 participating members of clubs across the entire country, and about 600 clubs that we have. We have a great leader here, CEO Tracy Edwards. I think she's an alumnus in some way or another from Leadership Toledo as well. And so she's had great participation with these programs that Leadership Toledo does to lead, connect, grow, and serve. So it's really exciting to work with her. If you haven't had the pleasure to know Tracy, I encourage any of you to reach out to her and make some time to get to know her. She really is a powerful, encouraging, and positive leader in our community and for the nation. So speaking of the nation and where we are, and some of the things even Anna said a few moments ago, we are living in some interesting times. I don't think that we need to cover many bases on that right now. It's pretty obvious and in front of us all of the time. I think that right now, while we always have a thirst for leadership understanding, training, ideas, I think we're acutely aware at this moment of just the thirst that we have. Like, many of us are seeking to be quenched of that thirst, and we might be looking in a lot of the right places. We might be looking in some of the wrong places. Either way, some of us, I don't know about all of you, but in many of my interactions and many of my conversations that I'm having with people, much of what I'm hearing, we are seeking to find a good fountain of leadership knowledge, wisdom, and action and vision for the future. So much of what we're finding looks like drained ponds and maybe a desert, and we would take great pleasure in seeing an oasis right now. So much of what we've learned in leadership in the past just doesn't seem to be working. The playbook that we have that we're reading out of for so many of us, and what we're seeing others read out of, just the plays aren't executing. We're not getting, for sports analogies, you know, we're not getting first downs, we're not getting receptions in some cases, and we're not getting touchdowns, but we're still on the playing field. So the positive thing is that we still have the game that we're in. The positive thing is that we still have knowledge of what sport that we're playing, or what life that we're leading, or what we're trying to accomplish, either at organizational levels, or in community levels, or at our family level, or at our individual level. And I think every single one of us probably that's here in this discussion today knows that to accomplish any of these things, we have to find leadership in ourselves. We have to lead ourselves first. My friend Sarah Best spent a couple of sessions here at the beginning of the month. If you were able to tune into those, they were pretty enjoyable and fantastic. All really talking about what does it mean to lead yourself? What are the tools that you use to lead yourself? And she talked about emotional intelligence and using the predictive index tool to help you to understand who you are and lead yourself. I'm a big believer in those tools. I also am a practitioner of the predictive index and certified, and use it in a lot of my coaching and training and consulting with a lot of great organizations that I serve, and individuals that I spend time with on a one-on-one basis. But what I want to talk about, continue to talk about a little bit today, does key off of leading yourself. I think that when we talk about learning who we are, learning more about who we are, and leading ourselves, one element that we have to do either before or as we do that is an unlearning, possibly taking things that we've known, that we just recognize while they worked once upon a time, or they were really good for the season that we were in at that time. Maybe those things, those areas, those learnings aren't good for this time. Possibly some of those laid a fantastic foundation for our life, and we wouldn't ever want to move off of that foundation. But there's probably part of the playbook that we work from that we might need to throw out. Maybe just part of it, maybe for some of it, it's the whole playbook. So that's what I call unwrapping. And unwrapping is a pretty difficult thing to do because we've spent a lot of time wrapping a pack that we are presenting to the community, to our friends and our family, to our employees, to our employers, and to ourselves in the mirror. And so when we look at the package that we have developed, it's really difficult to ever think about unwrapping it. And why would I unwrap it? Well, as Anna said in her introduction, we're really talking about authenticity. And when we really think about being an authentic leader, what does it mean to be true to ourselves? I think a lot of us seek to do that. And we also talk a lot about being a vulnerable leader. Well, a vulnerable leader doesn't mean that, you know, we walk around saying, here's all the things that I need, or have tears in our eyes all day long. Of course, tears can be healthy, but it's not necessary to be a vulnerable leader. What a vulnerable leader really means is someone who has made themselves available to say that you can do something with me, either for me or for each other or for the thing that we're focused on. So I think that those things are really important to get down to the center. And a lot of us have created a package. I'm going to share my screen really briefly. And some of our wrapping is pretty perfect. What we display to the community, what we display to each other, and even we probably worked really hard, and some of you have done a really fantastic job. This is a beautifully wrapped present. It has a nice bow, and all the lines are exactly creased correctly. And anybody that would look at that package would say, man, there must be a fantastic gift inside of there. And they probably would be right. You are the gift that's inside of that package. And it's up to you to recognize whether or not the wrapping that's around that, the sheets of paper that are around it, what we would call maybe our wrap sheet, whether or not those are authentic to you, whether or not they actually represent you, or is it something that's been manufactured or doesn't display who you are, or isn't actually you. But it does look pretty fantastic, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, being polished and being crisp and being clean, as long as it's real, well, that can be a pretty fantastic thing. And this package right here, this kind of gift is exactly what, when my wife wraps a present for the holidays or for a birthday, this is what her gift wrapping looks like. She was trained by her mother, and they both could have worked in a department store and done a perfect job of wrapping gifts. When I wrap a gift, this is what it looks like. And some of us, our wrapping on the outside might look like this, or maybe we just think it does. Maybe we think it looks like this and other people see this. Or maybe we think that our package looks perfect like this and other people see this. It doesn't really matter. Either way, that we have a good wrapping around our gift, and we've done it on purpose, and we have built things, adages, adjectives, axioms around ourselves. In fact, even if our package does look like this with a little bit of tape showing and a little crumpled and our bow's not quite right, it's okay. People are still ready and excited to receive it. They look at it and they think that it's thoughtful. You know what? There's no question when I give this gift at Christmas time, there's no question that people know that I wrapped it myself and that I was thinking of them when I did it. And so as we look at that kind of illustration, well, in order to get to the gift, we have to unwrap the present. We can't only be showing people that wrapping, and sometimes the wrapping isn't what we want to keep anyhow. And some people will unwrap it, they'll fold up the gift wrapping paper and they'll put the bow away to use for another time. And sometimes we might be able to do that. Other times we just tear it off and we need to throw it away and look at the gift that's inside. And so that's really what we're talking about. And as I continue to discuss it with you today, I just want you to understand that this is something that's a developing idea. It's still processing. It's still learning this. I don't think as we talk about becoming unwrapped that it's something we arrive at. I think it's something that we could practice every day or maybe multiple moments of a day to unwrap ourselves, to look at what the gift is and to see if the package that other people see on the outside matches who we are on the inside, and to become whole and complete on the inside. When I look at my kids, I see the packages that they have. I have 3 great kids. They're all adults, really. Our youngest is 14 years old, and I can't be prouder of any of them more than the other. I love them all. They're amazing. And what I tell them is that my only expectation for them, the only expectation I have, is that they would find joy in themselves and that they would be whole. Other than that, I don't have any other expectation. I want them to wrap themselves in kindness and truth and share themselves with others because they're a great gift. And that's one thing that I try to do as a leader in my own household. But what I don't want them to do is wrap themselves with phoniness, with expectation of perfectionism. I don't care if they get an A. I don't care if they're the top athlete on their team. My son is 2nd string, maybe 3rd string on a freshman football team. And I couldn't be prouder of him for all 2 minutes and 30 seconds of playing time he's gotten over 5 games. That kid stands with his team and he stands on the sideline and he throws the football back and forth just to warm the quarterback up. And the quarterback trusts him to do that. And without him being on the scout team and on the training team, that team would not be ready to play their game. And we go to every game regardless of his playing time because that's his team. And we're there to support his team because he's authentic in it and he believes it and he knows who he is on that team. And he's not trying to package it any different. Does he try to improve? Yeah. Does it sound like he's going to start a game here at the end of the season? Yeah. because he's working really, really hard to do those things. But I couldn't be prouder of him. I don't care if he didn't play a minute of the game because he's doing what he wants to do. Now, his mother and I didn't want him to play football at all. Frankly, we weren't really happy about it, but you know, he is. So we're going to support him and we love him through it and pray that he doesn't get hurt every single day. So as we talk about this and we talk about unwrapping, I recognize that this is a very difficult thing for many of us to even consider. And we spent a long time, no matter how long that time is. It doesn't matter if you're on this call and you're a teenager or you're in your early 20s, you've still spent a very long time diligently putting your wrapper on. And some of you have probably developed the skill that I'm just finding words for. But as we go into this, I'd like to ask you a question, and you can fill this out on the chat box. And the question is, of the things that help you to move forward, what are the things as a person that have helped you to move forward? These could be areas in your life that you've heard. They could be advice, could be the greatest leadership input that you've ever heard, a definition of leadership, an adage, a saying, an action that you've done, a discipline that you have. What are some of the things that you've used, the tools that you have, definitions of leadership, advice of leadership, sayings from leadership, examples from leadership that you've had that have helped you to move forward? When we talk about unwrapping, there's a whole lot of areas that we could discuss, but we're not, some of those areas would be good for a mentorship discussion or a psychologist or a best friend. Today, we're going to focus really on how we as leaders do these things. So I see a couple coming in, couple of responses coming in, but what are some of those things that you've used in your life that have helped you to move forward in who you are as a person and as a leader? So a couple that I'm seeing developed a personal relationship with a power greater than myself. Well, that is pretty impactful. Knowing who you are and where you identify. Kelly shared that with us, who you are in comparison to one that you can lean on that's greater than you. Quite a few others here. Dale Carnegie leader makes a person in each class of 50 feel like they were the most special person in the room and tried to mimic that through their career. It's really important. Knowing myself and practicing authenticity, such an important thing. And we're going to continue to talk more about how to do that. Treating each other with respect. In other words, the golden rule, I would like to treat others in the way that I would like to be treated, like loving your neighbor as yourself. Now we're getting so many, I'm starting to lose them. So Anna, I don't know if you'll see any here, but I'm getting quite a few.
Yeah, I can definitely read some out for you. There's asking for feedback. Never
Excellent.
ask your team to do something you are not willing to do yourself. Listen to your heart and gut. Remain in close contact with your mentors. Focus on what you can control and find a way to turn problems into possibilities.
Excellent.
A lot of practicing authenticity, servant leadership. We have a quote here. Go in search of your people, live with them, learn from them, love them. Start with what they know, build on what they have. But with the best leaders, when the work is done, the task accomplished, the people will say, we have done this ourselves.
Well, that's really fantastic quotes. Yeah, asking for feedback, leading as a servant. I think that, you know, the leading as a servant aspect of true leadership inside of ourselves and true personhood, while that is, it's so important. And it saddens me in some ways that we have to have phraseology like servant leadership. Our past as leaders and ourselves as leaders should be or could be at the place where leadership is synonymous with servanthood. That when we really look at it, that we don't have to redefine or modify the word leadership to be a servant, but that we are in such servitude as leadership that it's exactly the same thing.
Sometimes the importance of mapping out your network so you know who your mentors are and your mentees, so you can see, you know, where your roles are and recognize your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So really when we think about knowing, so I had a good leader tell me one time, do you have a mentor? They asked me, do you have a mentor? And I said, yes, I do. And then the follow-up question was, do they know that they are your mentor? That's a pretty important question. And really clarifying those roles, Kim, that shared that. I think it's really important to understand that, to be able to move forward with that and that kind of relationship, and to really get the input from each other. Everything that I know in life, I've learned from some impartation from someone else, whether or not they even understood that they demonstrated that to me, or if they even knew that they spoke that into me. And I've had that experience with others. I have a couple of friends that came back to me, I mean, years, I completely forgot of what I had said or done with someone, but they came back and shared that when I said something to them, they started a business, or they recovered from a difficult situation they were in, or a depression they were in. And so, taking the time with someone, and I see Melissa's there, listen and serve, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that real ideal here in a little bit. And I love this understanding that you don't have to know it all, and that's okay. It doesn't make you less of a leader. You need to let go of the ideal of perfection. I can't think of a much better thing for somebody to say than that right now. We don't have to know it all. And I think that when we look at some of these great speakers that are out there, and you know what, I think the thing that separates them, and great leaders, I think one of the things that separates them from so many others is that they focus on the one thing that they know really, really well, and they work on that instead of being like an open flame. While that provides great heat, when you really want to get something done, you need something like a blowtorch, which can either help to weld or to cut, and both of those being really important to put things together. So my computer, believe it or not, is asking if it wants to restart right now for an update. I'm going to say no. So we can continue.
Oh,
the things that happen on Zoom
technology.
Calls. Yeah. So great. My next question is, then and this is for some of you brave souls that are willing to share, what are some of the things then you feel that hold you back? The idea of the wrapper, some of that wrapper can be really, really positive. A lot of the things that you've spoken on, the foundations and the layers that we put on ourselves of great adages and sayings and advice and learnings from great leaders. But what is the thing that might be holding you back? What is the wrapper, or what things hold you back from moving forward? What are in the wrapper? And these could be things that come from your past, that have damaged you, that you put it out there and expose it to the community and to yourself, and you look in the mirror and you see that, and it's hard to unwrap that. What are some of those things? I'm seeing feeling unworthy. Yeah, that's a big one. You are worthy, Kelly, but I know it's hard to believe that for ourselves sometimes. Fear of failure, feeling not good enough.
Time, the imposter syndrome, fear of failure, fear of exposing ambivalence. Sometimes my polite nature makes my voice quieter than others. As an example, in a group, I let others speak first and sometimes miss the opportunity to use my own voice.
Wow.
A lot of people are feeling the imposter syndrome, wanting to please everyone too much.
Yeah. Somebody said to me recently, not only, the saying, not only can you not please everybody all the time, and you don't need to seek to be liked by everybody, you don't even like everybody. I really like that. There's some freedom in that. This imposter syndrome, wow, that's really powerful that some people are seeing it. We really do think a couple of things. We wrap ourselves up so much. Some of that insecurity that we layer on ourselves really feeds into the imposter syndrome of, what if people find out who I really am? And I'm gonna willing to wager that if they find out who you really are, they really will like that. And I'm also gonna really wager right now that people in your life, in your business, if you're a stay-at-home parent, if you're just staying at home for yourself, if you're working from home, in your singleness, in your marriage, the people who are around you, well, I'm willing to wager that they really need that person that's you. And so I want to talk a little bit to help us find out how we can do this on a daily basis or a momentarily basis. I know the feelings that some of you have that you're expressing. I really appreciate you sharing it about Lisa saying not living up to expectations or wanting to please everyone and not knowing how to follow your heart. We have to have both our head and our heart, but man, being able to seek and find what's inside your heart is so powerful. And I think that if we understand who we are and really grasp the idea that people want to see that, you know, even Becky sharing your polite nature, man, I make it a practice in any meeting that I'm in to try to allow the reserved or somebody who thinks that's a quiet voice. And I would encourage any of you to do that. Make room for that quiet voice. And I'm going to talk about this in a moment because that quiet voice can be one of the most powerful voices that's spoken in the room. Becky, we need to hear your voice. The community needs to hear your voice. So a saying, a mantra, a discipline, a tool, something that I work with every day is, and I'm not great at it. So what I'm about to share with you is I'm developing it and I want it to be true in my life. But I'm working on it and I'm just going to invite you to work on it with me in how to unwrap the layers. And then once unwrapped, once exposed, what do I do there? I call this pausing the rush or stopping the rush and starting with the hush. So that's pausing the rush, starting with the hush. What do I mean by pausing with the rush? It's twofold. The first definition I give to pausing the rush and starting with the hush is I pause the rush that I get as an addict of power. Man, I love the rush of being a leader. I love the rush of having charge. Simon Sinek says it very well that a leader, it's not being in charge of others, but it's the fact that you're in charge and that others are following you. And we forget all of the time. We forget, if we are admitting to it, we forget all of the time and make things incredibly important around ourselves and go on power trips. Every failure that I have ever had, and there are many, I don't need to bore you with them. They wouldn't provide you any value anyway. Every single one of them comes from me not pausing the rush in my life. Every single one of them comes from me losing perspective. Single one of them comes from me not stopping long enough to realize that this decision, these words have nothing to do with me and everything to do with the cause that I've been given to or the people that I'm around. And so when I seek to take power and when you do the same thing, well, we're just addicts, aren't we? We really love getting that rush. There's an adrenaline. There's a dopamine release. And I'll tell you what, we have to pause it in our lives. It's not wrong to have power, but it's wrong to abuse power. And it's wrong to have power over people. Once again, I will reiterate, boy, oh boy, wouldn't it be something if the word leadership was synonymous with servanthood? That the word leadership didn't need to have a modifier. That when we heard the word leadership, that we would in fact just be thinking the same thing as the person who is trying to push someone up a hill. That's using their power not to press someone down or to keep their thumb on them, but instead they were in fact pushing them in front of them and moving them forward every single day of their life, if that were only synonymous. So I seek to pause the rush. The second meaning I have for pause the rush is literally the rate of speed at which we all do things. It is incredible to me. If you live in Toledo area, and I'm a native of the greater Toledo area, I've been here my entire life, and I notice a pretty interesting thing versus us and maybe cities that are over 1 million people. In cities over 1 million people, traffic is a pretty standard thing, and people sort of go through it. When we have a 5-minute backup because of construction on I-75, people lose their minds. And I watch people rushing around, and I start to wonder and ask myself, why are they losing their minds? Where are they rushing to? Why are they rushing at the rate and the speed that they're doing it? Is it because their leader says to them that if you're on time, that you're already late? Is it because we've been taught really solid practices of 10 minutes early is really on time? Well, I agree with it as long as people aren't dying inside trying to get there. I think we've learned a lot over the last 6 months that some of the efficiencies and practices that we have around meeting really probably haven't been nearly as important as we thought they were. Moving into Zoom calls and doing things that we've become efficient, people being able to work from home. Now, if you have manufacturing guidelines, you need your people to be on time. But if somebody's not on time one time, are they made to feel as though the world is ending? Do your people feel constantly under threat right now? Well, we're already under threat. We're under threat by a global pandemic and fear. So how do we as leaders stop rushing ourselves? The second way inside of this stopping rushing ourselves is the speed in which we react or make decisions. I don't know if you're on social media, but it's filled with reactions. It's filled with a quick, swift, reactionary comment. And I see a lot of that in our conversations and what's given to us as an example. And none of it is building anything. None of it is helping anyone. And so reactionary leadership, reactionary conversations don't help anything in our relationships. And so we have to pause that rush in the speed in which we're causing people to do things, and the speed in which we're causing ourselves to do things. We're not giving ourselves any of the time to be the gift to others that we need to be. I'm going to pause there for a moment, and before I get to start with the hush, and see if anybody has any comments or questions. By the way, a 3-second pause on Zoom is an eternity, so answer quickly if you can, even though I did just say to slow down.
Well, I can fill in here a little bit, Max, while we wait to see if other people have comments. But I think, it's really interesting how you're saying the speed at which we make decisions or we have our reactions. I know me personally, I tend to if someone's throws an idea out and I'm like, yep, let's do that. And we go, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh wait, we should really kind of, walk through this. You got to find the balance, but I definitely can be very reactive sometimes instead of just listening to what's actually going on.
Yep.
So, the importance of listening and really listening to understand versus listening to respond.
Well, that's a perfect bridge, Anna. Thank you into starting with the hush. Starting with the hush has become incredibly important to me. It's not natural for me. For those of you that have taken behavioral assessments, many of you maybe did recently take the predictive index, or you still can, and we'd be glad to help you with that. But my natural acumen in life, who I am, is not to start quietly. And so I have two ways that I define this starting with the hush. The first way is to literally just shut up and be quiet. It's not normal for me to do that. I want to speak quickly. I want to I have a high levels of dominance in my behavior, and I enjoy saying the things that are on my mind. And if I think that they're valuable or helpful, I really want to share them. But I've learned, and I think now more than ever, it is so important for us not to share our thoughts immediately. It's exactly what Anna just said, the stopping, the listening. So in a meeting, so Becky brought up earlier, sitting in a meeting, and the whole concept of, can I give room to somebody maybe that isn't as ready to speak? And isn't it okay? And isn't it even better? Isn't it really good if somebody speaks the exact same thing that I was going to say, that I don't get credit for it? Maybe they say it even better than I was going to say it. Now, when they don't, and I've been in plenty of meetings and Zoom meetings, like I said, for me, 3 or 5 seconds is an eternity of a pause. And so if they're not going to speak, and sometimes leaders need to move on from the moment, well, it does still need to get said. It does need to get said. And, I think it's super important. I like this comment, though I'm going to pause here and go back to it. On the rush, on the flip side, leaders being prepared to rush when needed. Yeah, unquestionably. When I think about first responders, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, I'm really glad that that was brought up, and I am going to speak to that appropriate time, of course. The second hush that I want to speak to is the true hush and the calming of yourself. So even if you have to move quickly through the day, some of your jobs don't allow you to move slowly. Some of your jobs, it's an important thing to do the quick move throughout the day. And some of your jobs don't allow for you to sit back and wait for somebody else to speak. So we have to find our center every single day or multiple moments of the day. What's the center of that package? What's the center of that gift? Who are you at that center? And can you hear the quiet voice for yourself? Can you see yourself, and can you start the day in calmness? Or are you starting the day in panic? All of these things that we're speaking about are tools for us to be able to be prepared for the unknown thing. Because we prepare, we learn, and we have expectations, pretty great expectations of the challenges that we're going to face as leaders throughout our day. But it's the unexpected event that we really are training for, the thing we're not knowing that's coming our way. None of us in January were expecting to deal with in business what we're dealing with today. None of us. We even heard about China having issues and some other countries starting to have issues with the virus. None of us were expecting to deal with it. None of us were expecting to deal with the trauma that we went through. And I am grateful for those who rushed when needed to meet basic needs of people, whatever the case may be. If I had practiced and not rushed on some things some time ago myself, I wouldn't have needed the rush of some first responders than I did. 6 weeks ago today, I wouldn't be sitting here with a fractured back, 5 ribs fractured. If 6 weeks ago I hadn't have rushed through something. I decided to pretend that I was a mechanic, and I've done it before. I pretended I was a mechanic before and been successful, but my daughter had a really old Ford sports track pickup, and I decided I wanted to repair a sensor, and thought about this time of the day 6 weeks ago, I said, you know what, it's only going to take me about a half an hour. I'm just going to take a lunch. I'm working at home. I'm just going to go underneath there and get it done. And I put the car on the tire ramps and fixed the sensor and asked my sweet wife to come out and start the car so I could adjust it. And when she did, the car rolled down the ramps and rolled up the top of my back on the side of my back. And as it happened, there wasn't much I could get out. I said, oh God, no, I think, until the air left my lungs because one of my ribs had punctured one of my lungs. And I heard the bones cracking in my back as the car was now on top of me. And I didn't know what was going to happen, but all 100 and whatever small pounds of my wife stopped that car. And you know, you fierce ladies out there, you know what this means. She pushed it off of me and forward, and I crawled out into the middle of the road on hands and knees, and I had no breath inside of me. I was actionable, but I had no breath. I had no voice. I couldn't speak. All I had was a hush. And I knew I was broken. I just didn't know how badly. And as I was on all fours in the middle of our road in a side street, I had 4 basic thoughts. And my first thought was, I hope no cars are going to come down this road. There's no ambulance that's possibly fast enough to get to me right now. I'm going to die tragically in front of my entire family. And then my last thought was, oh, so this is how this is going to go. And then the air came back into my lungs with a squeak, and I was able to get out. I'm not able to breathe. And then the breath came back in because my wind was just knocked out of me, and I had no idea that it was knocked out of me because I haven't had my wind knocked out of me in 35 years. And in those 12 seconds that felt like an eternity, I didn't think one moment about all the great sales that I've had, the production numbers that I had, the organizations that I've led, and the failures that I've had in those organizations, the defeats that I've had. I didn't think about the business accomplishments that I've had. I only thought about the people that are in my life. That's all I thought. And I thought of myself and who I was at that very moment. And then my daughter was on 911 because she was getting her car to go up to the University of Toledo, and she dropped her bag in the middle of the road and called 911. And my wife was still holding the car so it didn't roll down the street for whatever fool thing I did that I still don't know. And I don't have a lesson to learn about repairing cars because I'm not going to get back underneath one. But I laid down on the road, and then they took me to the hospital and did everything that they needed to do. And as I was laying in the trauma room up at St. B's, and we have some great hospital systems in this city and great workers that work at those hospital systems. And Mercy is not an exception to that. They were phenomenal, the Mercy staff and team and nurses and doctors. And I allowed them to take all my clothes off, and I was completely exposed laying there on a trauma table as they inspected everything about me and scanned everything about me. I was completely raw, completely unwrapped, completely exposed. And it was my physical training up to that point, my walking, my running, and my weightlifting, not very heavy weights, but in fact lifting on a regular basis, that really helped to save my life. And over the last few weeks of rehab, have really helped me to mend that which was broken and wounded, and really helped me to continue to become whole. And while I'm still on the mend, you know, the physical therapists tell me, Max, it's just because you're gonna, not only you're gonna get back to running and lifting weights again, but it's because of your workouts. It's because of your practice. It's because of your discipline that some of the therapy is so easy for you physically, that you will be able to get back and be whole sooner than you would be if you hadn't have done those things. And man, that principle for me, to everybody that's listening, the only reason I'm sharing this with you is not to indulge myself in a story, but because of the illustration You're going to get wounded, and you probably have gotten wounded as a healer and as a leader. You're going to have those things happen to you in unexpected ways. And trauma speaks loudly. Sometimes it doesn't speak the truth, but listen in your hush and in your calm for that same still voice, so that even in it, even when you're wounded, that in your training on a daily basis, that you can mend quicker and you can become whole. And absolutely, for those of you that have spoken, that it's so important, for those that you need around you, your mentors, your friends, your community around you, you can't become whole without those people. And they may be people that you've led, they may be people that you haven't led, but leading yourself first inside of whatever wrapper that you have put on yourself will allow for you to rewrap as you're mending, as you're becoming whole every single day, to rewrap, unlearn, remove your bandages, rewrap yourself, put on new clothes, stand. And yep, I know I'm fortunate physically, but I'm also fortunate emotionally and mentally, spiritually and humanly, because of the people that are around me and because of the practices that I've been taught and those things that I wanted to share with you. So if anybody has any comments or any questions now that I've shared those thoughts with you, or Anna, if you have anything else to add, those are my thoughts for today.
Thank you, Max. Wow. I mean, I think it's a lot of truth to everything that you're saying. And, you know, I think one thing that I'm taking away from this is the way our leadership journey is going to show up for us is all going to be different. You know, the way that we're going to respond to things, or what experiences are going to allow us to kind of show our vulnerability, and how we're wrapped is very different. And taking the time to learn that about ourselves. And I wrote down, you know, leading yourself first. And I think we have to know who we are as leaders before we can take on the role of leading others, and also understanding that that's going to be a true journey and a continuous learning opportunity. So I really appreciate you taking your time and having this little fireside Zoom chat. So we're getting some thanks for sharing here in the comments. We are going to throw we're going to throw a review for you guys in the chat, or evaluation. So if you could please fill that out, we love your feedback. A couple other things that I'd love to share with you. Our next leadership series is on October 15th. Oh my gosh, I hope I have the correct date. Yes. October 15th. Sorry, that is with Craig Teemer from the Port Authority. And we're going to kind of be shifting here a little bit. This will be more about connecting with your community. So his presentation is called More Than a Port. So you can find that information there in the chat as well. So kind of learn about what does the Port Authority do here in Toledo? Where are they involved? And I'm excited to learn more myself. Finally, on Friday, October 9th, Leadership Toledo, we usually host a in-person 600-person breakfast that it's a great networking opportunity, and it's kind of the opportunity for us to share what we're doing in the community and really talk about our youth programs. And obviously we aren't meeting with 600 people in 2020. So we are taking that event virtual. So we would love if you could join us Friday, October 9th, 9 a.m. It'll only be about a half hour. You can join us from your desk, from your kitchen, from your pajamas, with your cup of coffee. It doesn't matter, but you'll have the opportunity to hear from a student from one of our high school programs, as well as a video about the importance of leadership in uncertain times and how Leadership Toledo plays a role in that. So I think that is all I have for today. Max, thank you so much. And I would also like to thank First Energy Foundation for making this series possible, that we can offer that for free to everyone here. So make sure you sign up for our next session on October 16th, 5th. Oh my gosh, now I'm messing it up. But October 15th, yes, make sure you sign up for that. And we hope to see you on Friday, October 9th. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.